Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So let's talk a little bit about character. How do you build character? Let's just go over a few simple ways. A lot of people think they have character. It's funny to me when I talk to a guy who thinks he has character and doesn't, and then they will usually profess, typically on top of their high horse with their chest out and their head high, like they're so proud of how their father taught them to be. They think that their character comes from just simple lessons that their dad or their mom, their grandparents, whoever they were raised by or looked up to as a kid. But that's not it as an adult. Sure, it's good to have some morals and some basic sense of what's right and what's wrong, but that's not character. When I talk to a man who wants to tell me how he learned character from his dad, I realize I'm just talking to a child, to a little boy who hasn't even begun to think about this yet. So let's think about it. What does it mean? What am I even talking about? Well, having character, building character, it really starts from being humble and recognizing that you have flaws, that you have flaws that you need to work on. That you need to work on your principles, your morals, your actions, your beliefs, everything about you that makes you up. Think about what would be a good person? What kind of person do I want to be? And then how do I be that way? And that takes an amazing amount of humility, of being humble. Because we have to look at ourselves critically. We have to look at ourselves from the outside and say, okay, that right there is a flaw, and this is probably something that's not good. And to take that collection of various things and to work on those. Work on the opposites, to counteract those with positive things. Take the negative sides of us and work on the positive sides. Doesn't mean you become perfect. Having character doesn't mean you become perfect. It means that you're actively working on these things all the time. Some adults don't. They just think that they landed there. They have this fantasy that you either have character or you don't. And it's like it comes from having good parents or you don't. It's a very naive, childish way to look at things. You have to break beyond that and really grow up and to be humble and have enough humility to realize that you too could work on certain areas of your life and on your personality and on who you are. And if you don't really know where to begin, sit down and think about it. Write a list. Do a visualization, do a practice of just thinking about what would be the ideal person, and then take steps towards that. That leads us to the second aspect of ways to build character, which is you have to live it. You have to live those principles. You have to practice what you preach actively. You have to be engaged in that vision, working towards it every day. It becomes not just a hobby; it's a lifestyle. It's part of who you are. It's more important than anything. So, another way that we build character is by being driven. You have to be driven towards your principles and towards your goals. You have to create some goals. How do we change from being a bad person to a good person? We make a list of goals and then we make active steps towards achieving those goals. So you really have to be a driven person. You have to have drive. You have to have the desire to change, to be better, to work on your flaws, to practice the positive things about you. So it's not just simply recognizing something bad, like looking at a painting and deciding what you hate about it. It's also looking at that painting and deciding what you like about it. Looking at yourself and deciding what you like about yourself and living that and being that way. You think you're a good person, then be a good person. Don't just talk about it. How many people do I know so many guys that go around thinking that they're so great and they do nothing towards this. How would you know? You have to let the world know. To build character, you have to actively practice this. You have to practice your principles. You have to be about it. Don't just talk about it, be about it. You have to be a disciplined person in order to have character, and you have to practice discipline. Doesn't mean, I'm not saying you have to be perfect in all of these things, but you have to be engaged, actively engaged in some form of discipline. You have to have structure to your life, structure to how you think, structure to how you act. You can't just be a wild barbarian. I mean, think about militaries. It's a very disciplined atmosphere. A military, everything is thought out for a reason because it works. They don't just give you a gun and say, well, there you go, run through the woods and kill everything you see. That's not how it works. And that's not how your life should work. When you're trying to achieve your goals and work towards personal growth, the goals of being a better person, being the best person you can be, you really have to be a disciplined person. You have to be able to, just like you're disciplined with your job. You have to be disciplined with other aspects of your life as well, and really be on top of your game and to push yourself, to have the drive to push yourself continually. You can't give up. When you give up, you begin to atrophy, just like with exercise. You don't just get in good shape and stop and say, well, I did it. There you go. Let's get a new hobby now. Go do something else. The second you do that, you start going downhill. You always have to be working at it. One of the final things that I believe as far as building character, which is important, is to be accountable for your actions, to be responsible enough and man enough to follow through with what you say that you're going to do. If you set a goal for yourself, you have to make steps towards achieving it. But accountability also comes with our failures. Somebody with character can own up to their flaws, can own up to their mistakes. You can own up to when you screw up. You can fess up when you fuck up. That's what we say at my job sometimes. I have a motorcycle shop. We also do metal fabrication. If I break a tool, I mean, I'm the boss, but if somebody breaks a tool, they need to come and tell me. You don't just put it back. You fess up when you fuck up. That's being accountable. I can respect that. Tools break. Shit happens. I'd rather you not break my tools. Please don't break my tools. But if it does, and you come and say, Sky, oh man, drill press isn't working, whatever, whatever, one of the buffers is out, or, we have all kinds of tools. We can deal with that. We can take steps to fix that. But if you don't be accountable to your flaws, to your fuck-ups, to your mess-ups, you're failing yourself. You're hurting yourself. You don't have character if you make excuses all the time. How many people do you know? I know a lot, where they can't admit to their flaws. They think they're perfect in their head, and they're always trying to justify something through various actions, whether it makes them look good, or even if they try to point it at an external source of why they're so messed up. Well, I'm screwed up because of this. Be accountable to yourself. Why lie to yourself? Admit it. I'm a flawed person, and I failed to achieve my goals because of my own laziness. A person like that has more character, even if they haven't really gotten anywhere yet on the path, than somebody who is going around patting themselves on the back for being a screw up, for being a loser, lying to everybody around them thinking that they're so great, lying to themselves thinking that they're so great. It's confusing to normal people. When you see that kind of behavior, you're like, what's wrong with this guy? We see it with politicians. We see it with leaders. We see it with our boss. How many of you had a boss that blames everybody else and never is accountable to anything? And you just roll your eyes at your manager and you're just like, that asshole. Building character means you really have to follow through with these things. So get in gear, create some visions for yourself of what you think that you would like to be like as a person. What do you think a good person is? And take steps towards being that way and live it. And you have to be humble enough to recognize this. You know, you have to burst that little bubble. You have to take off your armor and look at yourself, all the flaws in the mirror. And instead of looking at yourself like a fantasy, when you're fat and out of shape and you have all kinds of problems and you're looking at yourself like you're perfect, puffing up your muscles when you're not even paying attention to your weaknesses. But it's also to be able to accentuate the positive so you can have a positive effect on others around you. Your children, your family, your friends, they all benefit from your character. This is a good way to be in society. If a society has more people with character than not, that society runs well. If a business has more people within that company with character than without, that business is successful. These are just tips to better yourself. We could go into this topic for hours, and I just wanted to touch on it real basically and kind of outline some ways that you can build character in yourself. I believe that character is important. It's something that you work on actively as an adult. You're not born with it. You didn't inherit it from your father. This is not some Andy Griffith bullshit where just because you had a great dad who taught you a few life lessons, that's going to carry over for the rest of your life. That's not what we're talking about. If you're stuck there, you're a little boy and you need to grow up. All men, and I hate to talk in terms of all or nothing like I'm a dictator, but this is one of them. All men, all people need to work on and develop character. This is how we all thrive. Forget about surviving for a second. That's weak beta stuff. Always worried about survival, like you're just so scared. This is how we thrive, is by having character and letting that rub off on the next person. Not just your son. A father with good character raises a good son, but that son has to grow up and to develop their own character, to develop who they are, because you're not your father. Let's hope you're not. If you were, you wouldn't evolve. The human race wouldn't evolve if we were our parents. We would just be in state. We would plateau, and when you plateau, you end up declining. So take a good look in the mirror, develop a plan, develop some goals, work towards those every day. Thanks for watching.